This is recording number 3 on the Sketchup house doing a duct design. So the only thing I have done since the last video is add the interior doorways, which didn't take me very long to do, but just saved you guys the pain of watching that. It's pretty easy. Um, so we'll get started doing the duct design. What I like to do is use what's called a section cut, where I can cut away part of the model, but still see where doors and everything work and just give me a little bit more room inside the home to start placing registers. So I have some registers and boots made up already that we'll use, and we just go around and I set them where I think that they will be needed. So we'll start over here by the kitchen. I like to set my registers normally about 6 inches off the wall, so we'll make a line so that they're all in a line. And just start copying them around. On the exterior walls. Alright, now we can do the other exterior wall. Add another tape measure line, 6 inches, so we can keep them all in line. Now we just have to add a register to the bathroom. Which it uses an end boot instead of an L boot like all the other registers were. So I'm just going to place this about where I think it'll be. And we'll delete out all our tape guides, and we can add where the returns will be. So to do that, I just turn this section cut off so I can see the walls. And we can start placing our return grills where they're gonna go. Return grills, I normally keep 8 inches off the ceiling. So there's one bedroom. We'll do the other bedroom and master bedroom next. Like to get them to line up with the joists below. Now I will add the return for the main part of the house in the formal dining room here. This one will be a double wide. So what I can do with it is I actually have some options I can set. My standard is a 14 by 6. I'll make this a double walled 24 by 6. And you can see it just automatically makes the grill larger for me. I'm also adding one in the family room over here. I don't like that it's so close to the kitchen, but I feel like this is where people will spend a lot of time, so I want to have a return over here. And once again, we'll get it to line up with the floor joists. Alright, so that's it for placing the registers and grills. We'll delete the guides out, and then at this time I just like to check and make sure that everything's in its own joist bay and not in line. So right here, this one's in line with this return, so I need to move it over closer to the center of the window anyways. And that I'm actually going to move this register down more too for better separation for the room. That should be about it. So now we can turn off our first floor and the first floor walls, and that gives us a little layout here of where our registers and our returns are going. So at this point, I add some panning where my returns are down below. That just gives me an idea of where my ductwork needs to go. So let me open up where oh, panning. There we go. I color my returns green here just because it makes it a little bit easier to view and where they're going to be. Just making sure that they're over top of where they need to be. So that looks pretty good. So at this point I use another section cut to move away part of the basement wall, so I can get in here and start adding my equipment. I did also add, there's a little shower here in the basement that I added, which our air handler and equipment's going to sit right next to that. So we'll first start with um, a little return box for our unit to sit on. Make this the right size, so I'm going to make this a 20 by 20 box. And we'll make it 20 inches tall. Now I can go and open up where my equipment is that I already have pre-made. So grab an air handler. Then I gotta turn it and set it the right way. And also edit its dimensions here. So my air handler is 21 and a half by 44 by 17 and a half wide. And that means I have to adjust my box, my return box, I forgot, to be 17 and a half wide. And I also need to rotate it so it's the right way. Okay, there we go. Make these two things a group so I can move them about easy. And just line it up with the wall. Next I'll add my return 90. Put the metal pattern on it so it just matches everything. Make sure it lines up in the back as well. It's like I need to make my return box a little bit bigger. Okay. Next we can add our duct plenums in. Oh, forgot I need to add my filter, my media filter cabinet in as well on the return first. Get it all pointing the right direction here. Get it centered. Now we can add our duct plenums. Add a section of duct and set it to the right dimensions. So this will be 20 by 20. Center it up. Then at this point we can change the height to the correct height. So I need to get back around here to my little section cut. I want to make a little tape mark 1 inch below the joist to keep it off the joist a little bit. So then I'll just take it up to my tape mark and that'll be my height. I can do the same thing here on the supply of the air handler. So I'll go to my components and grab another piece of duct. This one's going to be 14 by 20. So just adjust that. All right. $14 by 17.5 is what that one is. And then we can set it to the same height as our return drop, which is 1 inch off the ceiling. So then at this point, go through and make a group out of all this so I can move it a little closer to the fireplace or the shower and make sure that I'm out of the way of our joists here and our beam. All right, so that all looks good. So at this point I can start adding my supply and return takeoffs. Okay, I had to get the man D open that I've got. So this shows my duct sizing, and the side I'm working on now are these 7 through 12 registers, which shows I need a 10 by 8 piece of duct. So I'll adjust my takeoff to the right size before I open it or place it correctly. So that's a 10 by 8 riser takeoff. Which I'll then shut off the joists so that I'm able to set this in place correctly. I can then add a piece of duct. Change it to a 10 by 8 duct. So then I'm going about 3 registers out that'll come off of that, and then I switch to an 8 by 8 duct. So add another section of duct. Set it to the correct size. Now I can add a duct reducer. The reason I have all these components set out, and sometimes this duct reducer is a little tricky to get to go to the right place, is that's a 2-inch reducer, is because I'm getting this to print out a bill of materials too, so it's important to use each component separately. There we go. Then I can just scale this one out to my furthest register, plus a little bit for room. And that's up duct side. Next, while we're over here, we'll do the return plenum for that side. So let me get back over here. And so that is also going to be a 10 by 8 takeoff. So I can just copy this riser takeoff and move it over to there. Can also copy this section of 10 by 8 duct. And this one I'll just keep 10 by 8 all the way down. So I'll just come to my furthest return. Now I can move this section over to here, do what's called a reverse cut, and I'll be able to get into this side to start doing my duct. So actually I'm going to move this up past this bump out to make it a little bit easier to get in and add my duct takeoffs. So now on this side, run out, we're 14 by 8 duct. So get a riser takeoff, set it to 14 inches wide, and then I can go in and set it in place. Then we'll add a piece of duct, which is already 14 by 8. It also goes down to 3 ducts and then reduces again to 10 by 8. So at this point, I need to move my section cut a little bit again. And I can go ahead and add my 10 by 8 duct with the duct reducer. So we'll make this one 10 inches wide. We want our reducer to go on this other side. So 4-inch reducer. Okay. And then that duct continues on to essentially the end of the house. Now we can do the same with our return here. Copy this riser takeoff over. And this piece of duct over. Scale this back to this return, and that's where this one reduces. And so we reduce to 10 by 8, it looks like. So set the size of this piece of duct. Make a 4-inch duct reducer. Then scale this one down to my last return. So that's the gist of the main duct layout. turn all these section cuts off and let you guys see. So that's pretty much it at this point. I'll leave it there, and the next one will show doing all the runouts. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.